just because it's beautiful, it doesn't mean that it will convert. Good design lives in the intersection between function and form. Function is how it all works and all that, and form is essentially like the aesthetic side of it. Excellent function and design requires research. You have to understand like what the rules basically, and then form requires understanding. So it's just understanding your audience, understanding your objective, understanding like what the current trends are, and understanding how these rules apply to your certain project, because it is only then that you can explore how to bend these rules in order for you to create a memorable experience. Because if you rely entirely on function, your email can be very functional. You see, you have your CTAs on there, you've got your products, the logo is in the right place. But if it doesn't have that aesthetic feel, or it doesn't have like that something that makes it unique, and it lacks personality, you risk being forgettable. The viewer leaves the experience not remembering anything because you're just the same as anybody else. And on the other hand, if you focus entirely on form and completely forget about function, you risk creating beautiful designs that don't convert. So it is a balancing act.
All right, guys. So I have Pwek. Pwek is the head of design here at Spring for our e-commerce retention marketing agency. She is a rock star designer leading our team of designers. And in this video, we're going to be covering design essentials for an e-commerce business success via email. So Pwek, why don't you give a brief introduction to yourself and your background?
Yeah, thank you for that very generous introduction. So yeah, I'm Pwek. As Eric said, I am the head of design for Spring Media. So basically, I lead the team of designers in Spring. My background goes way back. I've been a designer for about 15 years. So doesn't show in my face, but I've been around. So but yeah, my background is in UI UX mainly. I also did like a lot of branding work in the past, but right now I'm focused on everything e-commerce and everything email. Um,
Fantastic. Thank you, Pwek. So let's dive straight into it, because there's a lot that I want to pick your brain about. And honestly, I'm a designer. It's not my forte. So it's almost like I'm learning from you. Um,
yeah.
and I want to ask you some foundational questions. And what we'll do is we'll dive into a screen share. We'll build out an email from scratch, all that good stuff. But I want to
Yeah.
ask you some foundational basic level questions. Like,
Mm.
why does design matter? Specifically, let's tailor it towards like what we're doing with emails. But why does an email design really matter in terms of converting, in terms of brand identity, brand aesthetic? Why does all that stuff matter? Walk me through that.
I think to answer that question, I think we go back to like really like the fundamental idea of what design is and what is its role, basically in like society as a whole. Yeah, so bear with me for a second, but this is very important. The difference between art and design, essentially, and you'll be surprised how many designers do not know this, but it's very important for designers to understand this in order for them to be effective designers, especially when they're creating, experiences for UI UX, such as what we do with our emails. So the difference between art and design is that art is essentially a form of self-expression, right? So when you start with a canvas, you don't really have an objective in mind. You like just express yourself, right? But design exists because it is there to solve a problem. So design is intentional. You have an objective in mind, whether it's a business objective, whatever it is. But essentially, as designers, your job is to solve a particular problem. And the reason why it is important in email design, because it is, the basically how I imagine it, like how I've always imagined it, is like you're baking a cake, right? So all these different components, like the strategy, the copy, like all these different components, like these are all the different ingredients in creating like a good email. And basically the design is the oven, it's where everything else comes together. And, that's where you put in everything, and that's how you end up with a either a good cake or a bad cake, right? Yeah, that's how I would imagine it.
Yeah, lovely, lovely analogy. I've never actually heard that one before. Like that's the first time I've heard that. So I like that, like baking a cake. So tell me one thing real quick, Black. And you've explained this to me in the past, but honestly, I need a refresher. Like, why does copy matters so much in a design? Like, for example, if there's like intensively long copy versus it's just short, clean copy, straight to the point, how does that differ? Because I know some brands convert really well with like longer form copy. Some brands convert very well with a shorter copy. But how does that tie into the design, the elements, the conversion rate of the design? Like, how does that all work together?
It really depends on the demographic, right? So, for example, in spring, like we've got different clients. Some of our clients have an older demographic and some of our clients have a younger demographic. So it depends on like who your audience is and how they receive information and how, what your brand personality is. So like, for example, for older clients, you will want it, maybe they like reading stuff, right? Maybe they like longer copy, or like, for example, if you're selling like some sort of supplement for like an older generation, like they like to more information, right? Like they like to read. But like, for example, if your audience is a Gen Z, these are people that have, like they grew up in the age of TikTok and Instagram. So like they don't like reading a lot of things. So you basically you work with your copywriter. So that is important. Like your relationship as a designer, your relationship with the copywriter is also important. You have to be very open with these things, and as well as your strategist, because this is where you kind of come up with an end product that is relevant to your end user. So, yeah.
Got it. Okay. Makes sense. So the next thing I want to touch on is what are the elements of a good converting design? Not only does it look pretty, but let's talk about specifically an email design for e-commerce brands. What gets a good design to convert? Is it the elements of what the header image looks like, the CTA, the placements of the CTAs, where the copy is going, what design elements are screaming, what color, like walk me
Yeah.
through what you would typically do when you're creating an email before we actually create the email. What are the
Yeah.
elements that you typically like look for or need to be in there?
Good design is lives in the intersection between form and function, right? So when you say function, it's the functionality of your email. So it's like placement of your CTAs, which we'll discuss later on. And then form is basically, the personality of your design. It's the aesthetic. If you rely heavily on function, you can have like all your CTAs in the right place. You've got like your logo on there. You've got all the UI UX best practices on lock. But if you rely purely on form, you risk being forgettable because you don't have any personality. You're like same as everybody else, basically. So, but if you rely entirely on just the aesthetic side of it and forget about functionality, you'll end up with beautiful designs that don't convert because they can't find your CTAs, or like, there's just so much stuff on there that gets your user confused and all that. So you have to find the sweet spot in the middle. I actually prepared like a couple of slides to we have this on Spring, so I could I
Let's do
could
it.
kind of show them. Yeah.
Walk through it. I love it.
All right. So the first thing that an email designer should understand, because you would be surprised how many email designers don't understand this. The purpose of sending an email every day is to generate revenue for the brand. Period. It's not there to just delight people with a nice design. Basically, it is there because there's a business objective that needs to be met, right? So we have to generate revenue. So no matter how beautiful your email is, if it doesn't, get people to click through it, then you failed. That's it. Like, full stop. What makes good email design good? And specifically, what makes an email design convert, right? So the average attention span of a human being is 6 seconds. That's less than a goldfish. I did a bit of research. Goldfish is 9 seconds. Human beings are 6 seconds. Honestly, I would argue that it's a little bit less than that, but that's what the research says. So we have 6 seconds to get someone's attention with an email. And I believe this because myself, like when I check my emails, like, I kind of just check out all the unreads and just kind of click through them one by one. So the your goal is to create a hero that captures the attention within that 6 second window. So what is the hero? I would say the hero is the most important part of the email. I think 90% of your email is your hero. It doesn't matter if your email is beautifully done until the bottom, but if your hero is not effective, people won't even get a chance to see the rest of it, right? So your hero is your 6 second opportunity to get someone to convert or at least get them curious, right? So that is why it is the most important part of your email. Like put your energy to your hero. That's what I would say.
Yeah. I would also just to add on to that real quick, Black, like I would also
Yeah.
say like this is a common thing that's talked about a lot in the ecom space and email
Mm,
space in general is like email real estate in general. Right? Like when people are opening the email, you want to make sure it's a basic element that I think is a basic foundation that's just so important is
mm,
when people are opening the email, that's where the hero image is showing, right? Where it has the hero
yeah.
image, it has the header, it has the CTA, and just that
Mm,
placement alone, as you tied into saying like attention spans are so low, we want to
yeah.
make sure the offer and what we are trying to communicate via that email or what objective we're trying to communicate in that email, it's very clearly stated. So I love that. That's a great point that you brought up.
Yes. Exactly. Your hero should, encapsulate like the essence of the entire email. It's like a summary of your entire email within a couple of words, and that's correct. Like that's the most important real estate that you have in your
Mm,
entire email, basically.
okay, got it.
So like here are some actionable tips that that you can apply in creating if you want to create like a kick-ass hero that would help you convert, right? So first is less is more, simple content. Headlines should be concise. Nobody wants to read like a very long. You only have 6 seconds. Remember, so the shorter your headline is, the better. The user should know what to expect in the rest of the email, like you just mentioned, based on like what's written on there. So that is the challenge of the copywriter. So as well.
Mm,
So that's the first thing. Simple content as well as images. Don't put in like a whole lot of things in that because this is the tendency. Sometimes people because the hero is the only because we're saying that your hero is the most important thing. They cram everything on there, so they're thinking that okay, because this is the only thing that people will see. But actually, no, that is actually very counterproductive because it just like uh, it's a lot of cognitive load basically. So what you're trying to do is simplify it. A message that's just so clear that in 3 seconds the reader already understands what you're talking about. The offer's there, and everything else. So that's the first thing. Keep it simple. Second is the layout. So choose font colors. Yeah, the font colors, the type sizes, like these are very, very important things. I see emails that are just not readable. They put text on top of busy images, just not readable. So even if it's just like a short message, like you just can't see it, right? And then some of them like put in like very long paragraphs on there and all that. So just be very wary with your layout. Readability is very important. Never sacrifice readability for aesthetic because what's the use of like your offer if nobody could see it or understand it, right? So that's the second thing. Next is the the size of the text hierarchy. So make sure that your headline is the largest part. The reason why I'm saying this because some designers, like there's not much difference with their header and their subheader. Like they're all the same sizes, right? And the problem with that is the reader don't know where to read first, what to read first. So you have to assist the readers in what you want them to read first, then second, and then third. I really, really like this layout, honestly, because, it's very simple. You have like your headline on there, refresh your intentions, and then you have your body text. I would make this a little larger, personally, and then you have your CTA. And then this layout in particular, Eric, this is actually an inverted triangle layout, which is very, very effective. It's like a funnel. It leads your eyes towards the CTA, which is what you want. We want people to see the CTA and we want them to assist them. We make it easy for them. We're kind of directing them what to do. Text hierarchy is very important because, yeah, you just think of it this way. It's like you're helping your users make the decisions. You don't want them to which should I read first? Nobody's got time for that, right? So you have to help them, assist them in
got it.
making decisions. Just like, how menu designs are designed, like, for example, in fast food restaurants, like, these well-designed menus like help you decide actually which one to order, because all these restaurants know that the longer it takes for people to decide what to order, you risk losing them, right? So you want them to be able to make that decision quicker. Next is the CTAs. So CTAs should be the first CTA should be above the fold. I think that's very straightforward, and the reason for that is, if just in case you already sold, your hero sold the offer, you want them to be able to proceed to the next step right away. So don't make them look for the CTA. Don't make
Yeah.
them scroll down for it. Don't make them work hard for it. Just put
Yeah.
it there. Put it above the fold.
Mhm.
And the next one is, again, regarding CTAs. Don't On the other hand, don't put in so many CTAs. Oh my god, like I've seen so many emails that just like bombarded with CTAs, and some, we've encountered clients in the past who just like want a lot of CTAs. But there is such thing as CTA fatigue. If there's too many CTAs on there, again, the cognitive load of the viewers just gets overwhelmed. They end up not clicking on anything because they can't decide what to do or whatnot. So just keep it simple. Have one CTA on top. Maybe you got a couple in there, maybe one or two under product blocks or like featured products, and then just one at the end as you bookmark the email.
You got it.
Yeah. So again, don't make it too large or too small. This is why it's also good to A/B test CTA sizes, because this especially depending on age. So when you have an older demographic, you have to make the CTA obvious that it's a CTA. And then if you have like a younger demographic or like the Gen Z, you can explore different approaches. Like some good designers would like use like emojis for CTAs. Like they can be very creative with it and stuff like that. Just like create moments of delight. But again, it depends to your demographic. So testing, A/B testing, that's where it comes in hand. This comes in handy. Yeah. So in summary, this is sort of like the winning build, right? So we've got the brand recognition up here, your logo, and then like a nice hero that will, interest, pique curiosity, and then you can expound on like the email, explain some stuff, whatever, add product blocks, all the good stuff, and then finish strong. Bookend your email with a CTA. And the reason why it's important to put a CTA at the very bottom is because normally when viewers reach the bottom of the email, it means that they're interested. They're definitely interested. They reach the bottom of the email. So now, if they're interested and you already got their attention, again, don't make them look for the CTA. Okay, so they have to scroll back up and stuff. So
Yeah.
just put it there, make it easy for them. And then you can add texture elements, lifestyle imagery, testimonials, user generated content, and whatnot. But yeah, that's
You
what
got
we
it.
do.
Yeah, no, I love this, Beck, because one thing that really stuck with me that you told me years back, I think, at this point, that emails are miniature websites, and take it a step further, they're mini landing pages. Is That's technically what an email is. So, of
Yes.
course, there's like a little bit of different elements, but essentially, it's a funnel, right? At the end of the day, each and every email is a funnel, and if we make the basic comparison to a landing page, it's the same thing. It's literally like you have a nice, like, whether it's a video or an image on a landing page, or, some people are using like VSLs with a header, a nice, very clear headline, what the offer is, what are we trying to do, and then a CTA. And then it just goes on, right? Because if that doesn't get to convert, they read on, the email or the landing page gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and it's just funneling down, and then a certain percentage of people convert. So I love this. I think you explained that
Yep.
very, very well. So thank you for that.
No problem.
Okay, perfect. So let's hit this home and see how we can build this out. And I want to be behind the scenes and just seeing how you would build an email from scratch. And we can do this for like one of our current brands. I think you have Child's Play queued up. So why don't we shift into that? Let's go ahead and build out an email from scratch and see what that looks like. And one thing that I just want to remind everyone here that's like watching is that just remembering that like this is a basic foundation, but each brand will vary, right? Because each brand does have their own brand aesthetic, their brand tonality, their brand guidelines, all that good stuff. So that's an important part to like what we do is just to really be in alignment with their branding, because you don't want, like, I'm sure you would agree with this, but like you don't want the emails to look very different from like the meta ads or like the website or whatever the case may be. Everything should be congruent. So let's see how that looks like in a little design breakdown.
Here we are at Figma. So Figma is the main software that we use in designing emails because again, it's a very UI UX thing. Designing emails, like you mentioned, it's like mini landing pages. So that's why Figma is our software of choice, and it's easy to collaborate on here. So normally we have our briefs on a different platform, but I just copied everything here just so we get to see everyone gets to see like what the brief looks like as well. So for this particular email, this is for Child's Play Clothing. So Child's Play Clothing is a apparel brand which carries, and like they carry like all these different luxury brands for children, right? So we have brands such as Louis Vuitton, you've got Montclair, you've got Boss, yeah, all these luxury brands. So their aesthetic basically is very minimalist. There's not a lot of things going on. Basically, it's a very less is more situation. Like it's like when you go into a luxury store brand, it's very straightforward because the product really sells itself. The most important thing in like working on brands with like these is the imagery. That because that's what definitely sells. And basically, as a designer, all you have to do is create like a good canvas for this imagery so it flows really well, and it's just everything is just locked in, right? Because it is a luxury brand. So imagery, and I love working with brands like these because they have like a vast library of images that are just so beautiful. It's like it's every designer's dream, honestly, to work on brands like these. So really cool stuff. Okay, so this one is we are creating an email from scratch. This is an email that the client hasn't seen yet. We're creating it. This is literally a behind the scene situation. So we're creating an email for their spring season campaign. So this is the title of the email, and normally in the brief, you can see that there's a direction. So as a designer, uh, me personally, but I also encourage all of our designers in Spring to do this, is just to read through the entire thing before even starting, because this is your way of being aligned to the copywriters and the strategists, and just make sure that you are solving the problem that that you're tasked to. So the direction, what I did is I highlighted. I normally kind of take note of like keywords in a brief, right? So I just highlighted them here for everyone. So spring season, new designer showcase. Objective is to introduce the new designs for the upcoming spring season, focusing on a gender-based category breakdown. So I highlighted that. That's important. And then discuss transition into spring and how it brings new styles. Then feature 4 to 5 new designers, providing a background on each and what makes their spring collection stand out. And then we've got break down the collection into girls, boys, girls, and babies wear. Visuals should be high quality images of the new designs, categorized neatly. And then you've got discover the fresh new faces, the call to action. That is a recommendation. And then this is important. So it says here that need to confirm designers and products with Rochelle. So Rochelle is our client. And the reason why this is important is because that, the designers and the products that's listed here is not yet final. So as a designer, I have to, I have to put that in mind. So in case the client wants to change some stuff, change a designer and change a product, I must make sure that the design in this with the design we can easily do that. We can easily adapt. So that's part of it. So as a designer, it's not just creating all these emails that are beautiful. It's also kind of thinking ahead and how to make sure that the objective or our goal as a team of email marketers, is basically addressed, and yeah. So I like to note that down, especially when I'm building
Okay.
these things. Okay, so this is basically the copy for the email. So I'm not gonna read through that right now, but I'm just gonna copy. But I put it here so I can copy paste the stuff in the design. So first off, we're gonna start with creating the canvas, the frame. So normally we create with a 600 by 1024 canvas. So this is your hero. So the 1024 pixel height, that is the length of your hero. Anything below that is considered below the fold. this is above the fold. So you have to fit your hero here. Okay, so we're gonna start with grabbing some of the components for the logos and all that. So we'll start with this one. Then we're just gonna label this accordingly. Spring season new designers showcase. All right. It's actually a little weird designing with
I
people watching.
was gonna say this is I don't think I've ever even seen a live design. This is crazy. About like the hero image being a spring thing. I'm gonna learn a lot. So I'm a student.
Yeah, because we've been working from home for so long, Anyway, first I always try to get inspiration online. I already kind of took the liberty of like grabbing inspiration, but I use Pinterest. We've also have mailed really good emails and all that stuff. So like these are the designs that I feel could be something that we could drive inspiration from. My only caveat is like most of like these spring themed stuff is like it's very there's just a lot of elements on there which doesn't really match the Child's Play brand, but I still like to see what other brands are doing, or just to grab information. Grab inspiration, just so you're not you're just to jumpstart the creative juices basically. But I do like how they place their text here. That's really cool, like all the image overlays here and all that stuff. So just something to refer to when you encounter like a creative block or whatnot. And then also based on the brands that are featured here, I already grabbed images from their asset library, like beautiful, beautiful images. I really love the images from Child's Play, honestly. So, all right. So, I would want to start with a hero that has like a very spring theme to it. Like I like this one, but I don't know. I feel like it's a little, you can't see the face, you can't see the dress, but it's a nice kind of texture image, I would feel. But for the hero, I might grab something from here. So maybe this one. Something fresh and, very spring. Spring media.
Well, intent means spring.
Yeah. Okay. Just realized that. That wasn't intentional. Yeah. So maybe we're going to need a lot of negative space for the hero. So it's kind of clear and, so maybe we can do something like that. Oops. Then got to get a fresh start. So I like exploring typography because again, with Child's Play, we can't really add so many elements on here because we want it to be minimalist.
Hmm.
So typography has been my best friend here, because you use the type as like a tool to also create like a design element, if that makes sense, because you don't want like you don't want to put like flowers on there because that's not very Child's Play. So typography is the saving grace, which I actually really love. So I would say that maybe. And then, because it's get a fresh start. So for fresh, I kind of want to highlight that a little bit more and add a little bit flair to that. So like these are very classic fonts. Yeah, I don't want to get. I will start it. Then what I like is to add a little bit of background layer to make sure that. And then what I really like about Figma is that you can grab all these different elements on here. Yeah, so it's
This is all like a foreign language to me, to be honest. I'm like, what? What's
yeah.
cool?
Yeah, because before I've tried using Photoshop before in designing emails, and it was well and good, but it's just very, it's just a lot of work, honestly. And Figma is a lifesaver because it's also like a Google, like how Google Docs work, where
Yeah.
you can simultaneously work on design, like two designers can simultaneously work on design. I think that's pretty cool because sometimes we like to collaborate as well. um Something like that, maybe. So I like to offset this. Sometimes like I like to play around with the text again, sometimes, because we can always just center this again, like these are the rules. And but sometimes you have to understand, that's important, like you have to understand how the rules apply to your particular brand, so how to break them effectively, because you don't want to just always be sticking with the rules, because you're going to end up with like boring stuff, honestly. Yeah, so you want to excite them a bit. That I think I would make this a little bit, just a little bit smaller. Yeah. All right. Okay, so just let me grab these. So along with that, you mentioned earlier that it's important to use like all these different brand elements. So what we do is we create like these design styles. That's what we call it. So the design style is basically a set of fonts, a set of colors, a set of design elements that we create for each brand. So you become consistent with the branding of that particular brand, right? So you're not using like all these different text, all these different fonts. Yeah. Oh yeah. I also we also put grids on there. Like this is very helpful. Like creating grids is helpful because it what people don't know is that grids are essentially tools that help you connect one element, or like one element to another, so your email flows better. Okay? So it's like, for example, this one. So we want this to be like that, right? So I'll show you in a second, but you will get that in a second. So, for example, let's grab this image. Right? Have you ever tried designing an email, Eric?
I have in my life. I'm not even gonna lie. The most I got to design an email was um, 5, 6 years back when I was doing everything in Klaviyo and I was, freelancing,
Oh yeah.
sending plain text emails with like design images. Like that's the most experience I have with design.
How was that like?
Uh, it was horrible. I can't even say it was, yeah, it was tough. Like I was doing so many emails and I mean, yeah, they converted really well, but this was also 5, 6 years back. But yeah, I love designs and how they look and I'm a big fan of them, but the technicalities is just not my forte, to be honest.
Oh yeah. I can't imagine like I've never designed an email inside Klaviyo, honestly.
Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. I like these a lot better. So when they, you know, mix it up, sometimes we'll do like plain text and tasks for like clients, but these bigger brands like these branded emails is absolutely crush.
Yeah, so something like that. And how I would imagine this section, because we are kind of featuring, I think we're featuring three designers on here. So I would make this a GIF where it's gonna switch out into like it's gonna show like different a photo for each designer, basically. And you know what? Like great copy actually really helps with design, because for one, like personally for me, it's great copy is actually very inspiring for designers. Like if you see a copy that's like, oh my god, it's so written well, like you're just so stoked and so excited to work on a project. And on the other hand, if the copy is not so great, it's like, it's gonna be so hard. So
Yeah, spice up
yeah,
the design more. I like that. It's a good point. That
yep,
also shows to like it also shows like how much like goes into an email, right? Like starting with the strategy, then starting with like why are we doing a certain email? What's the end goal that we're trying to achieve? Then the copy, right? Then writing the copy in a very specific manner to get that result, and then designing that into a specific result, and then going out and scheduling that based on the strategy on who are we sending.
yeah,
So it just shows like how tailored everything is. So
yeah, definitely. It's just it's a lot of moving parts, honestly. Designing an email, but that's how you get like optimum quality, I guess, like working with the best of the best. Like
yeah,
I really really enjoy working with great copywriters, honestly. It's just
yeah,
there's such a it's very inspiring, really. It affects how you present the design if the copy is great.
I agree.
Yeah. So normally for these, I'm just gonna hide this for a second, the grid. So this is what I'm talking about. So like these are like different sizes, right? But because I lock this up with this, it kind of it connects like all these different elements together.
I
So
see.
that those are very subtle, but especially for brands such as these, they're very luxury brands. Like these matter because people essentially that are buying from them are people who are used to buying designer brands, so they are exposed with like designer brands basically. So designer brands are very very particular with design. Like I went to the last time I went to London, I did some research, and I think that was the time when we got this account, Child's Play Clothing. I went to like a strip, like this is all designer brands, and I just went into all these different stores, like as research. I was like blown away with
Yeah.
how everything is so well designed.
Designer brands are just another level. I think it just showcase. I feel like to a degree, like not I can't say this is true for like every brand, but like to a degree, like so many people take inspo from like designer brands, but those
Mm,
are like the toughest brands to model after, right? Because it is so
mm.
unique to a very, very specific audience, right? And just thinking of like typically what kind of people are buying designer, it's like the upper echelon of like the world of people that are going after actually designer. So I agree, it has to be very, very spot on to that audience. And yeah, Child's Play does
Yeah,
it really
exactly.
well.
Yeah, I really love working with this brand. You would think that designing simple emails is simple, but honestly, they're the toughest to do.
Yeah,
Because you have like the question is how can you do more with less, right? So that is why you have to very like for me, especially when I'm working with Child's Play, like I'm very particular with all the spacing and you just make sure that everything locks up real nicely and all that because yeah, you want to be able to represent the brand the
right.
best in the best possible way. And what I like to do also, like a neat little trick that I do with Figma is when I'm unsure of something on how it's going to appear on mobile, because even actually in Figma, you have this prototype thing. So for example, spring styles, right? And I play it here. You can see it in you can see it here as how it's gonna look, right? But it's still different when you look at it on your phone. I don't think if you can see that.
Yeah,
So
you can see it.
I like to sync up my Figma workspace into my phone. So as I work on it, I just put it here in my stand and put it here beside me so I can see it like live, like how it looks
Yeah.
on mobile.
I mean,
I
so
like to
crucial because like most of these people are viewing via mobile, but like yeah, there's a certain percentage that will see it on
yeah.
desktop. But yeah, that's beautiful.
So like okay, this one's not readable. The text is too small. You could actually see it on actual, right? So
Wow. Yeah,
because majority, I think majority, right? Majority of people like view their emails on phone.
Correct. Yeah, majority of people are viewing their emails on phone.
Yeah, because we're gonna add. I think we'll add more images on here because sometimes you would think that okay, like you can already read it here, but
Oh,
yeah, when it shows up on mobile, it's really small. So just to be sure, that's one trick that you
gotcha.
can do. Then I want to make this square. So oops. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna add two more images on here, like this girls with a bathing suit. That's very spring, I think. Um, yeah. And got this another close up just for a little bit of variety.
Hmm.
Maybe adjust it a little bit so you can see more of the. Right. So that's the first designer, and then again, like the spacing. This one we're very particular with. I rally about this like with our designers all the time that these
Hmm.
are very small things but they matter
Yeah.
collectively. So
Yeah.
next is we have which brand. So that's just so this is one trick that I do if I don't have a lot of negative space and I need more. I basically duplicate the image, I crop the one that's on top, and then I kind of stretch it out like that. So it's just a quick way. And then I just group these, and then we're gonna grab the logo over here. And then the text is that's why. Honestly, I think when it comes to design, it's very hard to make this like to create like an AI thing with design. We do use AI. We use Midjourney. Maybe we can have a episode for that and how we utilize it. But in terms of putting everything together, it still helps to have like a human factor on there because yeah.
I, there was a lot of talks around like AI and stuff, and people like showcasing like, oh my god, like AIs are gonna take over like designers, so on and so forth. But like, it's like I think this is a great example of a brand. Like, who knows where it's gonna be in the future, but like the current state is this is a great
Mm,
example of a brand that just requires so much touch, and most brands
exactly.
do really well, they're gonna need that brand aesthetic and that human touch. Like, yes, AI should be used as tools. Like, it does help at certain elements, which obviously we can definitely do an episode about that.
Mm.
But and I think Child's Play is a great example of that. That like it does require that extra care and that extra those extra set of eyes to really make sure like we're hitting this home.
Yeah, and I think people now are getting better in spotting like this is definitely AI. So
Definitely, yeah, yeah,
and then it's just a turn off, I think. So
yeah.
especially for brands like these, like I feel like they wouldn't risk it.
I agree.
Mm. So we're trying to present like all different like I said when it comes to brands like these, like images are like the main selling point. So like basically your job is how do you create a canvas that makes the image stand out, right? So you have like it's always like how do I give justice to these images and make
Yeah,
sure that they're framed in such a way that you show them at the best possible light. So you got one last brand, and then we've got the categories. All right, maybe we'll go. Sorry, this one. This one. Let's go for this girl. Honestly, when I first started out doing email design, when I got my first email design gig, I don't even know. I didn't know that there was like that kind of category. Like email design, really? Like people design emails. I thought emails is just like for, you know, a text or like, I hope this email finds you well and all that stuff.
who would even know that? running a whole agency that specializes with email, like that's crazy in itself. Like I still, I was talking to Kane about this earlier. It was like, she was like, we literally send like emails for a living. I'm like, that is pretty crazy. And like
Yeah,
people
it is.
wouldn't expect there to be like so many opportunities to help brands, but it's like there's millions and millions of brands out there, right? That like literally, and
Yeah,
it's such a crazy channel for driving revenue. It's insane. So
yeah, yeah. If you think about it, and even when people ask me, especially here in the Philippines, and when people ask me like, what do I do for a living? Like I design emails, and they're like, huh? What are you talking about?
question real quick on this. So, why aren't here? And this might seem like a very obvious question, but like, why is it not a good time to like make these CTAs like really loud and like have like a red or like a green or like shop now versus the subtle approach? Because I feel like a big misconception in the space with email CTAs specifically is like, oh, they have
Mm,
a certain color or like they have to pop or whatever. Why is it like more subtle here specifically?
good question. The reason why, yeah, we could easily create like like a bright red button and then do that. But like for example, if I do that, yeah, it stands out for sure. But you lose the brand personality altogether. So because of that, you lose the trust of your audience because your audience comes in with a certain expectation in mind, depending on what you've promised to them. Your brand promise. And Child's Play, uh, brand's personality is it's luxury brands. It's very again like well designed everything. So if you create something, you claim that you're a luxury brand, and then all of a sudden you've got like a bright red, something like that, because you want you're freaking out because your CTA might not stand out, then you lose them. Like they were, what is that? That is not luxury. So that's one thing. But again, actually, it is a balance still because at some point, depending again on your demographic, at some point you have to also learn to trust your audience, right? So, um, because for example, like if I make this CTA, like again, like for example, like a bright yellow like that, it just doesn't feel like you trust your audience because you're scared that they might not see the CTA. But yeah, so at some point you also need to learn to trust your audience, and that's why it also helps to have an email that flows nicely, right?
Yeah.
So you've got get a fresh start, your fresh pink styles, got amazing images. Because of the images, like these are very attractive images, and then you see the first thing that you're going to see is the image, and then you're going to see, oh, okay, so it's a bond, the brand is called Bond Point. Then you got a little blurb on there, and then you have the call to action. So it's like it's not like the call to action is hidden or whatnot. You still see it right there, but you're subtly, it's very subtle, but the design decisions that you made essentially creates like a path for your viewer's eye. So that's
And
what I
so
said. Yeah,
it's
sorry.
also like one thing I want to say real quick is a big thing is there's this saying that like sales shouldn't feel like sales. It should feel like you're shopping
Mm,
with a friend. You know what I'm saying? Like you should be shopping with a friend. That's what it should feel like. And I feel like the look
yes, of
feel
course.
this email gives to me is like, let's just think about the demographic. A mom shares this with another mom. Hey, like, wouldn't this look great for like our children or like our son or our daughter or whatever the case may be? That gives that element of we're shopping with a friend, right? We're shopping with a fellow a fellow mother who's a good friend of another mother, right? And
Yeah,
I think it gives that look and feel so good. And I also think that's why these emails crush for Child's Play, quite frankly.
yeah, absolutely. It has to be a pleasant shopping experience. Like you're shopping. I remember when we were onboarding Child's Play. I think one of the brands that they did mention that's like what they aspire to, or like what we should model after in terms of like just the aesthetic and all that was suffrages and flannels. So when you go to stores such as these, you don't see the the salesperson kind of bombarding you with stuff like buy now, right? It's
Yeah.
like the entire design, the store experience basically just leads you from one section to the other. So That's what we're trying to achieve here. Okay, so that's that section done. We are almost done. We just need to add in the different categories. Browsing these. Spring fashion. Got the boy here. Since we're creating a category for boys, so this area is like we're showcasing the different categories. So there's gonna be boys, there's gonna be for girls, and there's gonna be for babies.
Okay.
Yeah, and also the reason why I created like I use this different styles of CTA is
Mhm.
because again like we're trying to avoid CTA fatigue, right? So normally, you know that this is fine because you only have one CTA for like this frame, right? Because when you're looking at mobile or on the screen, like you're not gonna see the entire email at once, right? You're gonna see it like from faces. So it's okay to have like at least one or two CTAs on there. So, and that's why like to create variety with the CTAs, but don't go overboard and create like so many different styles. So normally we just have one that's filled, one that's only has the outline, but you know they still kind of it feels like they still belong in one style system or design system.
Got it.
So you can also experiment with that. Um, and this one, I'm gonna show you real quick like a different style of CTA that also works for us. Another thing that I like um, to think about when designing emails is people scan basically. Sometimes the people don't. That's why design is very important as well because some people they don't even read.
Mm.
That's just the reality. Some people don't even read, so it's important. That's why you need design to pique their curiosity because like with the design elements that you put out there, if it's good enough and you were able to pique their curiosity through your design, it's gonna encourage them to read on, right? But you have to assume first that people don't read, so you have to design in a way that you have that in mind,
Got it.
that even if they're not reading they get it, so like you would know, okay, so if they see boys, the word boys, and then there's a boy, like you would know like, okay, these are for boys. But
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of copy in here, right? Like not everyone's going to read every single piece of word, but they are definitely going to, if they skim the email, they're going to see the designs and something will catch their attention.
yeah, so I'm gonna grab this. We have another like this one. Yeah, we have this another CTA that we use. Like for example, for this email, right? If I put like CTAs, like the huge CTAs over here, like it's gonna be overwhelming. So what we do here is we've got like a little tiny shop now, because our goal ultimately is for them to click here, not even here. But just in case they want this specific product, they have that option right there, but it's small. So you have this, decision. It's not a very, very clear cuts. Again, it depends with each brand and the demographic, but this is how we came up with this because the client wants to feature like individual products, but they also want to feature the categories. So we prioritize the categories. We had that like front and center, but you have like this tiny shop now just in case, like they want to go right ahead and they're already sold with one product. So I'm going
No,
to
I'm
use that here.
I'm literally looking at like Gucci, for example, and they have a very similar. Like this is what I'm talking about. This is like Child's Play is definitely on like the upper echelon because they're literally promoting designer products for children.
Hmm.
Uh, it's I'm literally looking at Gucci. It's very similar to how we have things structured, right? It's like those. There's some where they're using those CTAs, and then the variation you just spoke about, where it's just kind of like an underline, very clean. And I'm noticing the trend. Like as I'm looking at these designer websites, like they do the same thing. So
Yeah, exactly. Because again, I think I'm going to add collection here just to make it a little bit longer. So again, it depends on the strategy behind, the email. So that's where strategy is very important in talking with the team and like what the objective is. Because obviously, if the objective of the email is for us to feature or highlight the boys collection, we'll have a bigger CTA for that. And, the email will be structured differently. But the main objective here really is the designer style. So that's why these designs are front and center. They have larger CTAs, but these are just sort of like additional stuff, right? So it's okay, if they don't necessarily click on this, it's fine, but just in case. So it really depends on like the strategy behind the email as well.
Got it.
Yeah. So that is why you have to always design with intention.
Makes sense.
You have to always ask like, why is it like this, or what the objective of the email is. Because if you don't know the objective, or you don't understand your target audience, it's just difficult to make the design decisions. And honestly, it's gonna take you longer to create an email, because you're like kind of, okay, what should I do? And you might even end up with something that's not gonna work, because there's no strategy behind it. So all of these like go hand in hand. Like everything is supporting each other. Like strategy, copywriting, you know, design itself. Um, okay, shop styles for girls. We're almost done. There's two more categories. Yeah, so I like to, because of this structure, we like to choose images with negative space. This is what you call negative space. The space that surrounds a certain subject. So when you have text, don't overlay it. Like for example, this image you're doing like that. So it's just like difficult to read. So make sure that your text is on top of negative space.
Makes sense.
And the last one is for babies. This little guy has a lot of negative space on there. So let's use that. Discord. That's for mid journey.
Oh, okay.
Mid journey updates and stuff. Yeah. We use them a lot for brands that doesn't have like a vast library of assets.
Yeah, I know with Charles, but we have a lot. Like they provide a lot of assets, but there are some brands
Yeah.
who they need help. So I
Yep.
know that comes in handy.
Yeah, and also what's interesting with how we do stuff in Spring Media is that sometimes, even as a designer, if I see something like, for example, okay, like this copy is too long, I mean, for example, like, it won't fit the design, or it just like doesn't look right because it's so lengthy. You can just like go ahead and like let the copywriter know. In this case, CC, like, hey, CC, can we make this a little bit shorter? And then they'll give you options and all that stuff, which is like really, really cool. That's
Yeah,
one of my favorite things about working with our team. But yeah, it's important to keep the communication lines open.
very true. Yes,
Babies, blah, blah, blah.
it's
Okay,
such a
sorry.
combined effort, right? Like that's like it just like goes on to our point we were talking about earlier, like
Mm,
strat, copy, design, implementation, right, and the client's feedback. Like it's there's so many moving parts. So yeah, I agree.
yeah. And just keep the communication lines open. Like, if you have an idea, like, ooh, like, I think it would be really cool if we do something like this here. So, and if I'm going to need your support and like providing copy for that, just let them know. And because, sometimes like that's where the magic happens, not saying you could do that all the time, but, if like when inspiration strikes and come up with something, it's just good to know that you have like the support of the team. I think it,
Yeah,
it really is like emails are definitely a team effort. It is.
agreed.
So what we're doing now is we're creating that GIF that I mentioned earlier. So right now we have this one image, and I'm just gonna add hmm, maybe add this one second. Then you're just gonna export this as a GIF.
Wow.
It's gonna look like that. Then this is the GIF now. You see, it's a GIF, and then you just have to lay it on top of this. 100. All right. When you look at it here, so yeah, see, board type, spring styles. So that's a GIF. And yep, so that's what we have. So we've got a nice straightforward hero, get a fresh start, a little bit playful on the typography on there. Then we have like a preview of the designers. And then we've got, all these different designer features. Oops, like one of the logos got lost. So yeah, that it helps to review your work too.
That's what I was about to say. Is like you're laying right now, you're double checking, triple checking, and boom, just caught something. So it's such a crucial part. Great catch.
Yeah. Parcel Glamours, visit baby collection, shop now. Just read it. And yeah, next thing is to check on mobile if it looks decent and everything looks good. So yeah, this would be ready for internal review. I pass this on to our account manager, have them take a look at it one last time before they send out to the client.
Wow. That was my first time looking at a behind the scenes how an email is created, and all I can say is wow, like there's a lot of work that goes behind this, um, and it takes time to build like these kind of emails out. So thank you, Black. I mean, that was very very valuable. Even like I'm speaking for myself, that was very valuable for me to just see that process.
Yeah, I'm happy to do this. I truly, truly, truly enjoyed doing this, like talking over everything, and yeah, just sharing what we do, like a behind the scenes uh, with the design process and all that. And I'm glad that you enjoyed that.
Yeah. Thank you, Quack. We'll do another video where maybe we can talk about like AI or Mid Journey, or we'll see like what people want, if they want, if we decide to do another brand
Yeah.
breakdown, design breakdown. So we'll wrap it up here. Thank you so much, Quack. I appreciate your time, and yeah, I hope this was of value.
All right. Sounds good.